Got to get myself adjusted there.
It happens.
Yeah, man. So how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, fresh off a little trip, so.
Yeah. How's the wife and soon-to-be kiddo doing?
Doing good, man. Surprisingly well. We've been talking about that, obviously, every day. But, yeah, surprisingly very well. Very easy so far, which worries me.
Yeah, don't end up with the unicorn baby, and it makes you have a second one pretty quickly, right? So.
Oh, I know. I know. We want a few, but, yeah. We're looking that way, man. Everything seems to be going good, bud. But Austin Williams, man, you know, I was doing some research on you earlier, right? I mean, obviously, we've known each other for a little while.
Sure.
But I was doing some research here because I wanted to make sure that I had the story straight, okay? And obviously, I know that you've won quite a bit of things on the NHRA side. Okay. No doubt about that. It's not deniable. But I'm looking through it here, and it's pretty ridiculous, dude.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, right? So I guess I'm in 25 years now, right, at this point.
Yeah.
So which kind of seems crazy because I'm 33 now.
Right.
So when you think 25 years, it's a long time. But you know, it's been a wild, awesome ride, right? So you know, there's still some chapters I want to write and some different things. So we'll see how it keeps going.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So one thing that, you know, a lot of our listeners and viewers here, a lot of them are participants in the sport, and a lot of them are fans. It's split roughly 50-50. And all types of, not just drag racing, although that is the only type of guest I've had on so far. I've got a few others lined up here, sure. But to broaden our horizons a little bit. But a lot of people go to an NHRA event or something like that, and they think that everyone there is a professional. They think that this is their job, right? Yeah. And I can understand that impression. Yeah. You know, when I was really young going to big money bracket races, I thought that was everybody's job, you know. I had no idea that other people were just doing this as a hobby.
Which sounds even crazier when you actually think about it.
Exactly. Why do we put ourselves through these things to do that? But what do you do for a normal job every day? Yeah,
so for me, I work in an oilfield service company. So I work for Halliburton, a fairly large outfit, right? So Big Red. So I'm an engineer there. I guess I'm a team lead now. So I'm over the engineers, so I don't get my hands dirty in the engineering work as much as I used to. But so I just kind of manage the work that the engineers do, make sure that our regions are prioritized, and getting the work out that we need to. So we're a global company. We do work in the Gulf, in U.S. North-South, in Latin America, in Norway. I just had some guys from Norway here in Carrollton last week. So it's a pretty big outfit. We've since switched to kind of a work-from-home model, you know, kind of with a general kind of COVID accident, right? So I have a work-from-home model, which has opened up a little bit of racing. So I can work from what I call the motorhome, right? So instead of work from home, it's work from motorhome, mobile office, if you will. So it's been good. I've been there for 8 years now, to be 9 years in the fall. So it's been good. But like you said, racing is the secondary, right? So it's funny you mentioned that because I think about all the time at a divisional event. That we won't even touch the national events just yet. But at a divisional event, how much money and assets is on the property, right? You're talking $75, $80 million, which is insane. You're talking about something that's, how big is an NHRA facility? 200 acres? I don't know. Yeah. And you've got $80 million sitting there, which is absurd.
We're not even talking about the track assets.
Correct. Yeah, this is just the racers.
This is what's rolled in the gate.
Yeah. And then we're paying even more money to be there. So it's just kind of odd. You know, that there's that much disposable income out there. Because let's face it, that's what it is, right? It's disposable income. But it's also, you know, it's a hobby. It's your friends. Some people, you know, go play volleyball or basketball or whatever, you know, to pass their time. And, you know, a lot of us, that's what we've done. That's what we've known, you know, and so we just continue to do that. That's where all of our family and friends are.
Exactly. That's one thing that's really rang true no matter who's been on here is talking about the community of racers, you know. The last two folks that were on are Felicia and Aaron Smith, a husband and wife that do drag and drive events now.
Okay.
And the same thing that they mainly hit on the entire time was the thing that brings them to those events is not only the challenge of basically trying to take a drag race car and turn it into an endurance car, but is the community, the people that are around. If something goes wrong, a lot of people are there to lend a hand. And that's obviously the case in NHRA sportsman racing.
Right.
That's the case in bracket racing at both the local level and the big money level. And it's, I think, one of the biggest components that's helped drag racing succeed for the last, I guess now, 75-ish years.
Yeah, right at it. Yeah. So I was at the 60th U.S. Nationals in 2014. So I guess next year will be the 70th, right? So
there you go.
So yeah.
It's just, when you step back and just view it from different perspectives, the fact that same thing rings true on all those sides.
Yeah, it's been dying for 40 years.
Exactly.
Right?
Oh, exactly. That was the topic of the weekend, man. Gator National sold out, Friday and Saturday?
Right. Yeah. So, again, I think that's not to get entirely in NHRA's business, but that's a little bit inflated, right? Because I don't know if you remember the year before, it was the Rain Nationals, right? So you had a lot of tickets that got comped for this year. So that's why I think, you had that sellout, although I don't want to call it kind of a false number, but in my opinion, it is a little bit. But, kudos to them, because as soon as you get people in the gate, you're going to have concessions, you're going to have vendors, you're going to have all of that. So it looks like it was a successful weekend on the track and in the pits. So, the other thing that I was going to touch on, that besides the family friends part of drag racing is, I think for a lot of us, this is still a competitive outlet, right? So even if you played sports as a kid, different things like that, let's be honest, as you get older, you can't play sports anymore.
As I've learned.
Yeah, your body doesn't agree with you anymore. But this is still a competitive outlet, even on the local level, right? Even if not even more competitive on the local level. So, that's still kind of one of those main drivers, right? Is how can you satisfy that competitive outlet for yourself, and compare yourself to other racers that you look up to, and potentially racers that look up to you as well. So. That's still, I think, as long as you still have the drive there, everything, you can still continue to compete and produce at a high level.
Well, you mentioned the local level, and that is the essential where you came from as far as your progression. It's very linear. It's not like you see a lot of people, in not just drag racing, but in other forms of motorsports, if their family or their financial situation allows them to skip some steps, they do. But and it's a lot of times it makes sense too, especially like on the circle track things or with go-karting and IndyCar or Formula One or whatever. If the family's got money or family has connections to money, that's a big helper. You, not so much. You are the blue collar representative for us. For in reality, what I think of a lot of millennials, you're the blue collar representative, and in NHRA sportsman drag racing.
Yeah, without the getting your hands actually dirty part, right? So
well, you've got a super wrench there in your back pocket. That's a secret weapon, no doubt about it.
It's been really cool. I don't think I'd really change a whole lot. I think ultimately, right? So everyone's goal is kind of, you wanted to be a professional drag racer, right? And as you get older, you realize that there's a lot of hurdles to be able to do that financially.
And limited spots.
Yeah. It's just it's a hard market to break into. I guess the main takeaway there is I don't think anybody becomes a professional on merit alone. Not anymore.
No.
It could have been that way in the 90s, 80s, something like that.
Sure.
But those guys and gals that get to that level, they've put in the hard work and everything as well. So I'm not diminishing that by any means, but it takes a lot of luck and a lot of financial backing, right, as well. So for me, I've just kind of progressed, as you kind of say, kind of the normal path, and not saying Lucas Oil divisional racing and bracket racing, because I still think they're kind of parallel, especially financially.
Yes, right.
They both take a lot of money and they take a lot of time to compete at the highest level. And I don't think one's over the other. I know that view is a lot. And I understand the optics of that. But NHRA divisional national event racing, it is country club racing. Let's call it what it is.
Sure.
It's people are paying a lot of money. People have to get grade points. It's a privilege to run at a national event, right? So NHRA, think wants to hear that they're country club racing, but I think that they know that they're country club racing, right?
Right.
And that's fine. I like I said, I know what it is, so I know what I'm getting into. So, but yeah, I mean, I enjoy that. I enjoy going to Extreme. I was just at Extreme. I lost a lot. I lost 2 or 3, 4 times. I don't remember. At Ardmore last week, another local track.
Right.
I lost. I was 0 for 6 at one point on Sunday. Well, between Saturday and Sunday, I was 0 for 6. So, yeah, I mean, you just kind of, I like racing in general, right? So I've gotten to a point in my my racing life now to where I want to go to the races that I want to go to. I want to go to the races with who I want to go to. I want to be involved with who I want to be involved with. And, that's what I like about it. So that's just kind of my personal perspective now.
Right. Yeah. Now I'll give you some little bit of hope here to maybe get you turned around on your 2023 so far. The last 2 guests that have gone racing after being on this show are undefeated. Both Ryan Gleghorn and Callie Nate, who's a street racer guy. He's won 5 shootouts in the last 2 weeks, and Gleghorn's won Sportsman at Extreme both weekends.
And semied in Pro Blue last overnight.
That's right.
At 4 a.m. or whatever time we finished.
Yeah. So you might get a bump after this.
There we go. I'll take it.
So, yeah. But how did you, if you would, take me back to when you're young, right? You're obviously a product of the Junior Dragster Racing League. How did you get started? Your very first Junior Dragster. Do you remember it?
Yeah, I do. I guess, way back. So my dad's a car guy. So kind of speaking to that super wrench you said there. My dad, he grew up, 70s, 80s, things like that. So he's a car guy. He was kind of around for that era. And, when they moved to Texas in the mid-'80s, late 80s there, he was introduced to the drag strip. He had knew it before. And he ended up getting a car. And then, him and my mom just kind of started racing at Texas Raceway, 40 weekends a year, whatever it is, March to October. Mm-hmm. And so naturally I was a part of that. So I would go with them out there. And then, of course, you get old enough for junior dragsters. And so I got my first junior dragster Christmas of 97.
Okay.
So I turned 8 5 days before that. So because my birthday's in December. So so then I raced that next year. I raced the next 8 years, I guess, in the Junior Drag Racing League.
How'd that go?
Junior Drag Racing League was good. I thought I had a successful local career. I hate saying the word career because it's so stupid because no one does this for a living, right? So I had a good junior drag racing life, I guess. But yeah, it was good. I had a couple track championships there. Funny enough, on like the Denver Bristol kind of conference finals deal and the ET finals, local ET finals, not a single ounce of success, like at all, like 0. I think the best I ever did in either of the conference finals over 7 years, something like that, was like second round. Like it was bad.
Wow. It's a lot of travel. Man.
Yeah, I did win one of the like the Wednesday leading up race deals.
The warm-ups.
Yeah. I won one of those one year in Denver. But that was it as far as conference final stuff for juniors. So then, of course, when I turned 16, my mom, she races as well. So my dad and my mom race. At the time, we had my dad had a Vega, she had her '69 Camaro, and my uncle also had another '69 Camaro. He had just got him a Vega. Some parallels here.
Yep.
But so. Me and my mother would kind of split her Camaro. I'd run it in foot brake. She would run it in Super Pro. And then I progressed. I started out in foot brake going 720s, like in a 69 Camaro, which I would tell everyone, do not put a junior dragster kid in a dragster. Like, I just think, for me, it was better. Start out slower, right? And kind of the natural progression would be to go to foot brake, right?
Exactly.
Because that's exactly what you did in junior.
Exactly what I was going to say.
So it worked for me. Does it work for everybody? No, probably not. So maybe some kids need to be in a dragster. That's each their own.
And we've seen them have some success, and even young guys like kids like Casey Pesnell,
right?
Who went out and I want to say, what was he, 14 years old or 15 years old?
Yeah, 14 or 15, won a 50 grander.
And won a 50 grander, right? And everybody threw
their
arms.
Race the next day.
Everybody threw their arms up over it, and I'm like, we're worried about a 14 or 15-year-old getting in a 470, 480 car. But we don't think twice about a 14-year-old kid getting in a World Outlaw sprint car.
Right. Yeah. It's very us racing, right? Circle. It's a little bit apples to oranges, right?
It is. It is, but it's just so funny the way that it's perceived.
Yeah.
In those two different ecosystems of
yeah,
racing.
like when I was watching, I'm not a huge dirt track fan. I'll admit. So, but I do happen to watch the Chili Bowl just about every year, right? Because why not?
There's nothing else happening.
Right. And so you look when they're doing driver intros or whatever, and I'm like, these kids look 12.
Some of them are.
Right. And so, it's just kind of weird how that works, you know. And of course, you know, I was skeptical. I'll be honest, I was skeptical when the junior dragsters went down to 6 years old now, right? So instead of 8, I was thinking at the time that you know, is this a really good idea or not? You know, because 6 is pretty young, right?
Exactly.
They're doing it in other motorsports, right? So that was the whole
motocross, man.
Yeah,
it's a big thing with little kids in motocross now.
Yeah, that was the whole deal. Is NHRA wants to tap into that market to continue to grow that generation or grow your next generation of racers. Right. So I get it. As we migrated off topic there. So I got into big cars, local level bracket racing, right? So nothing too crazy. Me and my mom were sharing a car, but I was also my uncle's 69 Camaro. I was running it as well. So if we would take 3 cars to a track, I would run that one. So we wouldn't have to share a car, whatever. And then Denton was reopening. I guess it was Denton Dragway, and then they turned it into North Star Dragway with whatever owners. I think it was. It started with a W and had a whole bunch of vowels, maybe Ukrainian, Russian. It was one of those names, you know, Woznowski or something like that.
Hard to say.
Yeah, one of those. And Larry Croft and Nick Duty were the general managers there. Who Nick, congratulations, Division 5, NHRA Division 5 director. So I've known Nick forever, right, from those days. Yep. So congratulations to him. But you know, they added a prize at the end of the year where they were going to give away a rolling TNT dragster, right? And this is in 07. 2007.
And TNT cars were being made in Forney, not far away. So this is a promotion that the Dragster Chassis Shop is running through Denton to try to kind of build some sales up of a local dragster chassis company. Get your
participation up. Yeah, do all of that.
Exactly. It's a very win-win thing, very common in bracket racing to happen at the big money events. And this was the first time it was adopted, or one of the first times it was adopted at a local track for a points trophy.
Yeah, essentially, I think at the end, you know, your top 32, you all paid $50, right? Because who's not going to pay $50 to enter this race for a dragster? So I was fortunate enough to win the points championship. So I got the number 1 overall seed, right? It was laddered, but which doesn't really matter in bracket racing. But you know, I was fortunate to be able to win the dragster. So things have sort of spiraled since then.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So you know, that win was pretty huge when you really think about it in a vacuum.
Right. Well, walk me through that day. Do you still remember it? I'm sure it leaves an impression on your mind.
I do. It was at Denton, and this is back in the day when Denton had AccuTime first off, but I don't know if you've ever seen some of these racetracks where they had multiple colored bulbs on the scoreboard, right? So like red is a red light, green was the win light, blue was a breakout, and you could have multiple ones lit up at the same time.
And then there was ones for whoever got there first, too.
Yeah, and so it's you know, that's aging myself a little bit, but along with my hairline, but yeah, so I can remember, you know, leading up to that year, I think I was first, Dylan Bontrager was second, you know, kind of going up through there. And for whatever reason, Mom's car loved the dial-in 737 at Denton, right? So that's just what it was, you know, there. And I can remember I ran, multiple things. One is my dad was also in the 32-car shootout thing. He went first. He was kind of one of the... He wasn't the first pair, but first 5. Right?
Early.
He raced Mad Max.
Okay.
Not sure if you've had him on here or not, but maybe at some point.
I think I still want to keep my job.
That's fair. He raced Mad Max first round. He beat him. So Mom kind of runs back to me, and she was like, no pressure on you. Your dad won first round. And I'm thinking, well, what? You don't have any faith in me, you know?
Right.
And so anyway, I ended up, you know, getting to the final. I was racing Randy Tanksley, who was in one of the Mays, Rustin and Robbie Mays, one of their dragsters.
Of DRR drag racing series fame and NHRA success.
And it was actually the race tech that Rustin had won in that point series.
Like the year or two before that. Yeah.
It was in that race tech. And so I run Randy in the final. I think I'm like 20 and dead on, you know, something like that. Which was really cool, you know. And of course, like as soon as that is, somebody hands me like an envelope of 12 or 14,000 cash, right? They want the dragster, right?
Of course.
And, as an 18-year-old that's about to go to college, I'm like, this kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And, I'd kind of decided to, I was a door car guy, but I was like, well, let's try this dragster thing. So, I'd made a deal with my uncle earlier in the year, like, hey, if I was to be able to somehow win this dragster, he was like, we'll take the engine out of my Vega. It was just a little 496.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll put it in the dragster and finish it out. So we ended up doing that. And then I guess I ran Super Comp at maybe 3 races the next year.
Right.
I won the Ennis divisional, right? I mean, this is a 496 in Super Comp going 158.
You are bringing a spoon to a gunfight.
Yeah, on alcohol.
Oh, yeah. With an 8-inch converter, if I remember right.
8-inch converter, 950 carb. Everybody would look at the carb and be like, that thing is tiny. So I ran Super Comp for maybe three races then. And then towards the end of that year, I was able to win Race of Champions at the bracket finals.
Right.
You'll see where I'm going with this in a minute. It was a no-box Race of Champions. I won in Mom's car on the long track. That's when we still bracket raced at the bracket finals, a quarter mile. And so the reason that is significant, again, all of these things, it's weird how everything lines up and gets you to where you are. I was able to win a gold card, right? Because you win the Race Champions. You won the division, bracket finals, whatever. At the time, you were able to use that bracket finals gold card at a divisional event.
Exactly.
And so that got me into the divisional events,
For free for a whole year.
Right. And running 5 or 6. And then, family friends of ours, the Marlows, we had known them from running juniors. They also run the divisionals at the time, had stock, super stock cars.
Yep.
So since I was going there in 2009, I decided to start running one of Butch's stockers. Right. And so, we kind of agreed to that. I think I ran 2 national events, or 2 or 3 in 2009 and 6 divisional events. And I was fortunate enough to win the Cajun Sports in 2009 in the stockers. So that really just set the hook, right? So
exactly.
I've basically been running NHRA for 15 years now.
And I was going to say, what we were talking about on the stat side here. So if anybody knows in depth NHRA sportsman racing, they know who Austin Williams is if they pay attention to it today, right? It's kind of like trying to not know who Nick Folk is, or Edmond Richardson,
Nick Hastings, right? Nasty Nick,
exactly.
Not even Nick Hastings. He doesn't need a last name.
That's right. Not anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to run this through here, and you correct me if I'm wrong anywhere, but I want you to think about this. Okay. I'm going to start in 2013. Okay. 2013, you finished 9th in the points in Super Comp on the national scale. Mm-hmm. You win at Dallas and Tulsa in divisionals. Then we move on to 2014. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. 2013. I guess just a note, right? So I graduated college then. So I went to A&M.
Right.
I graduated in May. Okay. And that was the first year that I ran, I believe, a full schedule. If I didn't get to 6 national events, I got to 5. So it was very close.
Right.
That was the first year that I kind of ran a full points ledger,
and
if you will.
Right. Made a serious effort at it.
Yeah. Because I was just out of college, right? So try while you don't have a job yet. Yeah.
Exactly.
Might as well.
Exactly. And then it gets a little silly from that point forward.
Yep, agreed.
2014, Stock Eliminator, national champion. Wins at Belrose, Dallas, the divisional, Topeka, the national and the divisional. Super Comp points, you runner-up national scale with wins at Houston and Noble on the division side. So you're I was looking at the points, maybe 1 or 2, like a little bit better national finish. 1 win might have put you over the top.
Yeah, I won Houston National that year in Super Comp.
Yep, I got you here. Yeah, Houston. Yeah,
Edmond ran away with it that year. Yeah. He weirdly how NHRA works, right? Because it's kind of regional based.
Exactly.
I was at Dallas. I lost third or 4th round. At the same weekend, he's in Columbus at the Sports.
Okay.
He wins the Sports. It locks me out. I can't catch him.
No matter what, I can't catch him. He built that lead, and it's over.
Yeah, I'm at like 590 something. He's at 680 something. I know, weird how we all remember these weird things. And that was in September. That's when Dallas National was in September before they moved it back to October.
Right.
So he kind of locks me out at Columbus. I still go to St. Louis the next week because that's on my schedule. And then me and Jeff Lopez run in the final at Dallas. Noble Divisional.
Okay.
Me and him run in the final. Jeff had already locked me out of the division at that point by us both making the final. So I didn't win the division, didn't win the world, finished second in both. But the final for me and Jeff was essentially who's going to finish second, who's going to finish third.
Yep.
So I beat him in the final. I finished second. He finishes third. So that's kind of how it ended up.
And what's hilarious too is that obviously Edmond doesn't live here anymore, but
Right.
Edmond's from here.
Right.
So the top three guys are essentially two legacy guys in Lopez and Edmond.
Yeah.
And then you, the next generation of basically DFW
we're all
racers.
kind of like 10 years apart, right? So like
Exactly.
10 to 12, kind of a jump there.
Right.
Yeah, so it's just kind of weird how that works out.
Texas really does produce really good racers.
Yep.
Texas and Florida Tennessee as well, seem to produce probably the most dominant bracket racing or NHRA sportsman racers for a large majority of it.
Yeah, and of course we're from Texas. We're going to puff our chest out. Right? It's fine.
But then, like, it just keeps getting fun. It gets silly. Like stock, you runner up the national championship. Got a whole bunch of stuff. You doubled up in at Belrose.
Yeah, and in 125,000 degrees
Exactly.
in July.
Just
it was
cooking.
awful.
That is like an athletic achievement.
Yes, it's horrible.
In 2016, stock, you finished fourth. In Super Comp, you finished second. You runner up to Nick Folk.
Yep.
2017, you win the Stock Eliminator Championship again. And this is national championship. This is as high as it
Super
achieves.
Comp in 2017. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I have that wrong. You're right. Super Comp.
Yep.
Yes. 2018 Super Comp, you finish ninth place.
Yep.
2019, you finish fifth in stock. 2020 Super Gas Points, eighth place. 2021 Super Gas Points, runner up.
Yep.
2021 Super Gas, 10th place finish. And 2022, you finished seventh in Super Gas, and you runnered up in Super Comp.
Yep.
All throughout that entire thing, okay? We have 2 wins at the U.S. Nationals. You've won the national championship twice in 2 different categories. You have 10 wins at Topeka, including one year when you swept both divisionals and the national. You have 6 wins at Dallas, either on the national or divisional scale. You did the double up at Belrose, which we went through. And 14 times you finished in the top 10 of national points.
Yep.
That alone over the last 9 years is a Hall of Fame career.
Yep.
If someone out there is running the Sportsman Drag Racing Hall of Fame, it goes in there as a first ballot.
Yeah, there's 2 things that I want to do still, right? Because I still want to do some things. So you mentioned kind of some different top 10 finishes there. I want to have each number, and I know that doesn't make sense, but I was able to get 7 this last year, which from an aesthetic standpoint, 7 is the best looking number.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you can't pick a bad 7.
No.
And so I went with Slot Machine 7, obviously.
There you go.
But so I have 3 and 6, I believe, are the last 2 I've got.
Okay.
So going into last year, I had 3, 6, and 7. So I got 7. But yeah, one of the huge things that I was proud of last year. So in 2022 was the 10th year in a row that I had at least one top 10 finish.
Exactly.
And so I was very proud. I was able to get to, once I kind of got to 8 and then 9, and I was like, all right, let's try and get 10 here. And so I was very proud of that, and there's one year that I didn't win a national event, and that would have been in 2020. Of course, it was a little shortened. I still went to 5 national events, so there's no reason. I had opportunities to win a national event.
Right.
I just didn't. And so, I'm missing 1 year there, which kind of bugs me. But that's okay. I won 3 last year, right? So, I mean, it's awesome. And like you said, one of those being Indy. Or as someone put it, I've never lost a heads-up final at Indy, is how they put it, which is hilarious. Because I had the heads-up final in 2019 in stock,
right.
And then I won Super Comp last year, which is kind of a quasi heads-up category. It's a heads-up bracket category, which,
sure.
Oxymoron there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been, on the NHRA side, it's been really good. I've been fortunate to be able to add a 3rd class in Super Gas within the last 3 years.
Right.
Where a buddy Wood offered me a car to drive in 2020. I come up with a crazy idea that I wanted to chase in 3 classes in 2020 due to a modified point structure. He said, come get it, and it hasn't left my house since. So it's been awesome. The relationships I've been able to build over the years have really contributed to a lot of that stuff you named off, right? So it's been really good.
Yeah, and that's one thing that is so I guess, inspiring to honestly like people that are close to our age. And then I don't know if you've seen it or not, but there's a bunch of, junior drag racing kids out there that look up to Austin Williams, whether you find that weird or not.
Yeah, a little bit, right?
It's the truth though.
Yeah.
They look and they're like, this dude has, almost, I wouldn't say done it all, but you're
0 for 9 in All-Stars for the record. You don't have that on there.
No, I didn't. I wasn't going to put it on there. I looked at it and I'm like, that's bad luck.
Yeah, 0 for 9 there. So there's still a couple things out there.
Absolutely, there is. But if anybody, any NHRA sportsman racer, if they had this same career, they would feel extremely fulfilled, I believe.
Yes.
I think you have to look at this body of work here, and it's just simply undeniable. No matter if someone wants to be an Austin Williams fan or not, there's just no way that you can ignore it because of the body of work that you've put together here. Now, you mentioned Buddy Wood, Buddy Wood played a small part in me coming out here to Texas, so however many years ago it is now. And what is that relationship like when someone trusts you with a piece of equipment that's
very expensive piece of equipment?
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's at an elite level.
Yeah.
That is obviously a beautiful car. It's that 68 Super Gas Roadster.
Correct.
Obviously makes plenty of power. Mm-hmm. What is it like to go that fast? Because you're on the quarter mile, right? Mm-hmm. Open body car, judging everybody else. If you would, walk me through just one of the finals that you won at a national event in that car.
So, I was kind of scared to get in it at first, right? Because I've driven a dragster, whatever, at 182, 3, whatever it was,
right?
Whatever it goes.
That dragster has so much extra length off the front. Pretty much no matter where you point it, it's going that direction.
Yeah. God, this is going to get me hate mail probably, but I tell everyone dragsters were made for women. That's what I always say. They go straight, right?
They do. So they do go straight.
Yeah. And so a roadster, it is a different animal. And everybody that I had talked to previously talked about wind beating you to death in those things, right? Which I'm like, how can it be that bad? I've driven a dragster. Of course, as soon as I get in it, the wind just tries to rip your helmet off.
Right.
And so, that's I was scared of it at first, and of course now it's whatever, it's normal. But yeah, I tell everybody I'm very fortunate. My super gas experience so far is 3 years long, going on 4th year, right? 4th full season. And so I'm very fortunate to be able in what I call a top 5 car of all time. It is very awesome.
It is.
And I've told my mother this, which she doesn't race anymore, but I've told her, I was like, I would feel comfortable with you in this thing, because it is that smooth. And so, I won the Dallas National in it in 21. That is my only national event win in Super Gas so far. Been close a couple of times in other class or other races.
Events, yeah.
But it's funny you mentioned Topeka. The Roadster hates Topeka for some reason. I think I have 2 round wins total in 6 tries.
Everything else that you've ever driven loves Topeka.
Right, yeah. And that's the one car that hates it or something. And it's just a fortune of luck, right? So, but yeah, it's, I ran the Dallas National in 21. The first year, the Stampede of Speed. Oh, yeah. Great marketing for the record.
It's a cool thing to see, man.
Stampede of Speed, the way I realize, it's a little gimmicky, right? Let's call it what it is.
Sure.
But it's really great for the fans, right? On our side from the racer, it seems gimmicky, right? But, I've got enough to zoom out and look and be like, all right, the fire, the other things, the fans are probably into this,
the concerts that they're doing now out there and everything else, man. It is cool. It's 2 weeks now.
A track is trying.
Right, they're trying. They're putting the effort up. If you look at Funny Car Chaos the weekend before, right? Because, Texas Motorplex does have a lot of room for fan camping.
Yeah.
Which is kind of rare besides maybe Gainesville.
Brainerd, yeah.
Brainerd is great at it, and I think that's what they're trying to do at the Motorplex is kind of use Brainerd as a little bit of inspiration, but obviously do it with a very much so Texas style.
Yeah.
And have it at an NHRA national event that is a party to try to bring people that want to go see live events and experiences, right here and inject it into drag racing.
Yeah, they've done a great job. There's certain things that all tracks and organizations don't do a great job at, right? Like,
Yeah.
and there's certain things in that event that probably aren't racer friendly, right? They're
course.
fan friendly, whatever.
Yeah.
I can see that from different perspectives. Now that I'm older, I can see these things, right? 10 years ago, I'd be mad about everything, but yeah, the Motorplex, that was a weird one a little bit because we ran the Houston National, what was supposed to be on Tuesday of the Dallas Stampede of Speed, because it was rained out earlier in the year at the Houston National. They didn't have sportsmen there.
So just have the makeup there. But.
Yeah, so we had it Tuesday. I'm in the Tuesday/Wednesday, so it's such a messed up deal. So we go there Tuesday. We run 2 or 3, I can't remember. I think a testing session.
Okay.
Billy Meyer takes over essentially on that Tuesday at a certain time.
I see.
We didn't get to finish, so we have to finish Wednesday, right?
Oh.
Yeah, we're supposed to finish Tuesday, and something else took over on that Tuesday, and Billy's running the show, right? This is the first year of the Stampede of Speed. And, typical NHRA fashion, we're trying to do 20 pounds of things to put a PC in a 5-pound bag. Yep. And so anyway, so we go to Wednesday. I'm having to work from the track, right? Because I can't take off this much time. So I'm rolling to the lanes for the final, and I hear a rock hit right as I'm at the kind of the main gate entrance right there.
Rocks are a main theme at the Motorplex.
When I pull into the lanes, I hear the front tire going flat because I heard it. I heard it pop. And so luckily Jeremy Heffler was there. So he's riding up on a scooter, and I said, hey, I need a tire plug. Like, the front tire just blew. So as he goes to get that, I'm yanking the front end off, and Jerry DeBusk, he waited on me. So we go up there and we shot a bunch of air in it, right? And I added like 2 thou to my delay or something, just cuz, right?
Right.
I'm still 2 thou red, adrenaline, whatever. And so that was the national event final of Houston that was run on Wednesday. And so then I make it all the way to Sunday, which you had to get all the way through Saturday. They got you all the way down to the final. So you ran the final only on Sunday. That was it.
Oh man. So how long are you waiting around on Sunday?
3 p.m. I mean, something like that. 2 or 3 p.m. to
Wow.
run one round.
Wow.
I have Jerry DeBusk again. We both make our way back to the final. Just how racing works. Just
yep.
coincidental. Of course that happened.
And you were just racing there, so everything's gonna be close to the same. Even if you get a weather change, it's still gonna progress at the same rate.
Well, what's wild is I still remember this. Again, numbers guy. I'm weird.
Oh, I know.
I staged in the final on Wednesday with 4:10 in my timer. Right.
Okay.
4:10. And I staged in the final on Sunday with 3:55 in my timer. Yeah, I mean, we're talking 55, and I'm right at a 2-to-1. We're like,
so you're at a 2-to-1 stop ratio. Okay, yeah.
It's 2,500 slower by the time we got to Sunday than it was Wednesday of that week, which is kind of wild. But it just happened to be what it is. It's just one of those weird barometer drops out, humidity goes up, like just kind of a weird deal.
Kind of that cold front weaning off.
Yeah, just something odd, right? Like it was drier early in the week, and then it just got hot and humid.
Yep.
And so, by the time we got to Sunday afternoon, right, I said 3 p.m., I happened to just be going a little bit faster than Jerry, right? I think he goes 93, I go 92. He beat me like 5 thou on the tree, something like that. I take 6 to 8 thou, something. So that was really cool because it did 2 things. One, got me my first win in Super Gas, and also got me my first win in 11 years at the Motorplex.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I had won 2010 in stock. And then I had not won again until 2021. It had been 11 years. Wow. And I've only won, I won a Super Comp there last year. And so I've won 3 times there now in this span, which is cool because it's 3 different classes.
Exactly.
I don't think anyone else has done it at Dallas from what I'm aware of. I tried to search as best I could.
Not too many people are going to have the opportunity to.
Right. And so I think that's cool, especially being the home track. I'm just 20 minutes from there now. So, that's Super Gas has been really rewarding. It runs later in the morning, which means I don't have to get
stock.
which means I don't have to get up as early. And no offense to anybody in stock, Super Gas guys are very easygoing, right? They're all super happy to be there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a different vibe, right?
Stock Eliminator's its own little subculture, it feels like.
Yeah, it is. It's super stalkers are way cool, and super stalkers are way cooler, whatever they want to say, right? And I like to say stock drivers are way weird, right? So, which I am one of those, right? Like I get it, but no, it's been really awesome.
Yeah, man. And so, explaining the differences, you're talking about Super Gas, Super Comp, Stock Eliminator. let's just real quick reset everybody's fundamental understanding of it.
Yeah,
You know,
we lost them.
Right. We understand this pretty
We
well.
lost them.
But the first thing I want to ask you before that is explain the national points system for the NHRA scale, because it is probably one of the cooler point systems. Now, whether anybody wants to judge on how quality it is or whatever, I would have to disagree with them, because I think it does a pretty good job of actually determining who your winner is. I know that there are some people that are not fans of it, but I guess you're going to find those folks anywhere. How does it work for someone that wants to have a full schedule?
So if you want a full schedule, you can go up to a full point schedule is 6 national events and 8 divisional events. Of those 6, you claim your best 3, right? Mm-hmm. And then of those 8, you claim your best 5. So essentially what you can do is you can not count 3 divisionals and 3 nationals, right? So because we're all going to have kind of bad races.
Sure.
Nobody's going to have a perfect score unless you're someone in comp. Like, it seems like every 3 years someone has a perfect score in comp. You know, it's interesting because you can be fighting with someone and never be at the same racetrack as them in the points.
Not even be in the same time zone as them.
Yeah, it's just wild. Or you can end up in a situation like Cooter Hidalgo was in just this last year, right? So he ends up tied with Brad Burton. His tiebreaker is he beat him at Vegas. Right. You're talking about a guy from Washington and a guy from Louisiana that raced in Vegas, and that ended up being the difference. And so, yeah, it's the fairest system I think you can get. And then nowadays they've recently introduced the waiver system. I don't think it's going to have much of an impact personally. Okay. So they basically offer the option of you can waive the race. You can choose before the race starts with Q1, time trial 1, whatever you want to call it. You can choose, I'm not going to claim this, you know.
Okay.
And so that's fine. You know how I waive races? I don't go to them.
Exactly.
I'm not spending the money.
Just stay home.
Yeah, because, let's call it what it is. A divisional doesn't make a ton of financial sense, right? So you're paying $200 to win $4,000 probably.
Right.
Honestly, not horrible when you think about 6 rounds for really $4,000.
Yeah.
It's not the worst thing ever. But you know, most of those racers aren't in it for the money, including myself, right? Like,
exactly.
None of us are doing this for the money. Do we want to break even? Yes, absolutely. But we're not getting rich off of NHRA sportsman racing. Yeah.
I've never seen a Wally pay a bill.
Yeah, no. If anything, they just take up garage space.
Yeah.
Precious garage space, though.
Yes.
Everyone likes their Wallies.
Oh, of course.
So, yeah, I mean, the points deal, like I said, I think it's about as fair as you can get. I have like some minor beefs with some things, like a 6-round race and a 7-round race are both 105 points, right?
Yep.
So I get why they've done that, because in certain parts of the country, you don't get the car counts that the others do. So it kind of evens it out a little bit. So I understand it.
Like Division 6.
Yeah, Division 6 or even Division 4 anymore, right? So we don't get a ton of cars anymore, especially in Super Gas, right? So I think we had 40. Okay. 40, 42, something like that, maybe 38, I don't remember, at Belrose. But the previous 2 years, that was a 5-round race. So 5-round, you get a little bit less points.
And what's really funny in Division 4 I'm seeing is that a lot of guys in Super Gas are going to Super Street.
Yeah, and they're going the other way now, too, because they don't want to run early in the morning.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's so funny because it's...
Well, they moved the tree, right? So they moved the tree down 300. So some of those Super Street guys can cut a light now.
Yep.
And so they're like, well, screw it. I don't want to wake up.
Yeah.
And they get to run all the national events, right? Because Super Street isn't at all of the national events. So,
right.
That is the kind of the trickier part from where we live now, is getting to national events.
Oh, yeah.
We have one in our division now, so Dallas. We lost Houston. And we lost the Cajun Sports back in 2016, I believe. 2015 was the last year the Cajun Sports were at Belrose, and was a sports national, so no alcohol, but comp and down, right?
Exactly.
And I'm hopeful that maybe we can get something back there to kind of supplement this region and supplement the Hoyas, who've done a pretty good job there turning that place around. Again, I like tracks that try, and they try a lot. And the divisional there had a ton of spectators. Awesome.
Which is very unique. I think you see it some like at ATCO. Norwalk.
Yep.
Yeah, you have your little pockets where it is community or town-based popular.
Yeah, they're taking kind of the Bader model, I think, is what he kind of did. He handed out a ton of free tickets. because as soon as you get them in the gate,
you get them for the beer, you get them for the chicken fingers, you get them for everything else.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm a fan. I think it helps everything. So, they've done a good job. I'm hopeful maybe they get the sports. They kind of reward them for doing a pretty good job down there. And they kind of supplement this division with an additional national. Right. So we're one of only 2 divisions that have one national. So the other one being Division 6. Of course, they're kind of an island up there. Just geographically, they're so diverse, like huge.
Exactly. It's a big area.
Right. And, I was looking at some different competitor schedules, in Division 7. They only have to go out of Division 1 time.
I know.
All year. I have to go out at least 5 times to even get national events. And so I plotted it from a mile standpoint. And, Topeka is almost like a home national at this point, and it's 500 miles away.
If you compare it to D7, some of those guys drive even further than that.
Yeah. And so, I pretty much go to Vegas at the end of the year because once I get out of the first kind of 5 that are close to me, everything's 1,000 plus. Right. And Vegas is the best racetrack in the country. So why not go there for Halloween?
Exactly. It's a great time.
Yeah. And so running a point structure, it can be challenging. Like it's going to be a lot of window time. It's going to be a lot of miles. And you're going to have to commit. But yeah, it can be rewarding at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think of another format in motorsports that has close to the same travel requirements. So you look at the travel requirements for a grassroots type motorsport. I'm not talking about NASCAR or NHRA pro teams. Yeah. And not like Supercross or IndyCar. But if you look at someone that's doing the stuff themselves, most of the dirt late model guys, they stay in the Southeast for the most part. The dirt modified guys are in basically the Division 3 area for the majority of it. Sprint car guys are everywhere. The World of Outlaws is probably the most enduring standpoint from just a lifestyle. It's close to 100 dates a year, and it's everywhere. But that is still that's a truly a professional program. There's a couple folks up there doing hobby stuff, but they're not the majority.
Yeah.
And they probably don't run the whole schedule. They probably just show up to their local events when they, swing through town, like for in Ohio or Indiana or Pennsylvania or whatever, or California for that matter too. But the NHRA racer that wants to go run a full schedule, you can get to a point to where you can run almost every national. Mm-hmm. But there's not a lot of incentive to do it that way because once you run your first 5, you're locked. From then on out, you're blocking. But there is such a huge commitment to making those efforts, to getting to the racetrack, the maintenance on whether it's your pickup truck, your motorhome, or your toter home.
Generator. Yeah.
Your generators are, man, if someone would make like an elite level generator like some of these folks build race cars, boy, oh boy, would they be making some money.
Well, we live in the South. You got to run that generator
24/7, man.
Just about in
You're running it down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
But like all these things, the trailer maintenance, it goes on. And especially someone that runs stock or super stock, it's not like you're running a mail order big block Chevy in a car. You're usually dealing with there's at least some sort of component on the car that is rare and nearly impossible to find.
Correct.
Whether it's, like on the Mopar side, obviously the cylinder heads are a massive cost. The carburetors are just hard to find probably. Mm-hmm. And intakes are an absolute nightmare for most of the classic cars, Folks that are wanting to get into class racing nowadays, a lot of them kind of take that factory stock approach.
Yep.
Which brings its own advantages and disadvantages. You get guys that really invest heavily into making their stuff the fastest out there, and it shows on that factory stock side. But then you get a lot of people that the majority of them, I think, that own those cars are really collectors. I don't think we're going to see most of them ever at the racetrack.
Right.
But you can also convert showroom cars over to that, and there's a little bit of an actual natural showroom car classification for some of them now. I don't know if the Fords have a natural classification. Oh, yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. I believe they're an F car. But
2015 Mustang Ecotec deal.
Yep. Right. Yep, that one, and then you can get a 2015.
2014 maybe.
And then you can get a 2015 LS3 Camaro.
Yep.
and I think
there's some 2010 Challengers.
I was going to say it's 09,
2013
10,
maybe.
Somewhere in that range, Challenger that I think runs in B or C.
Yeah, ABC, something like that.
Yeah. But you get all that stuff there. And the fun thing about Stock Eliminator, if you're just the driver, is you get heads-up races and you bracket race.
Yep.
And at the same time, because of the wide spread of the field and the nature of the racing itself, you can play a little bit of ladder games. Maybe either you're trying to exploit the fact that you have a fast heads-up car, or you're trying to hide from someone who does have a fast one.
Ben both.
And, other times you're also, if you have something that just hauls ass, you look down, you see an odd number of cars on the sheet, you go, I'd like a first round buy.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, and there's certain numbers that you can get 2 buys, right? So
right, exactly. So you're like, okay, cool, let's do that. Let's give that a shot. So even the entire event from a class racer standpoint, you're playing the game. Mm-hmm. And that game isn't just between the water box and the turnoff. That game is a real mental game at the shop in preparation and what kind of combination you're putting together, as well as, who you work with on your components for different things, from everything from axle bearings to brakes to cylinder heads, camshafts, intake manifolds, trying to acid dip cars.
What fuel?
Right? What fuel you're using, because there's there's a big wide variety in the fuels that you can use. How you prepare your car for a heads-up race versus a bracket race. How many runs can you make in heads-up mode before you have to swap back, or the thing's going to eat itself?
Yep. It's
such a game, and that's the reason why I really love Stock Eliminator. I've gotten to only participate in a very limited capacity, but it's I like it a lot.
Yep.
Obviously, financial model doesn't make any sense.
No, not at all. Yeah, zero.
But it's still so cool.
Yeah, it is. And there is the most satisfying race of all time is winning a heads up that you shouldn't. And that is the most satisfying of all time.
And I think you should have won this final round, and you did. But you won in the sportsman drag racing terms, probably the most famous Stock Eliminator final round in the last 30 years.
Yeah, probably. I would say that's fair. I think social media obviously pays a lot of that.
Right.
Yeah. So it's it was wild. I mean, I don't think Hollywood couldn't.
You can't
make
write a better script.
No. I tell everybody all the time. That was the Indy, so it was 2019.
Yep.
The last normal Indy before last year.
Right.
That was the Indy that we were having a few timing system issues.
Right.
And so you had the Afton Swanson top dragster thing. You had, I think Mike Salinas had a bogus run in there at some point. Like, there was a lot of random issues all in the right lane. So I tell everybody all the time that the beam was hanging up a little bit. And so I said it hung up just enough for me to be 000, right? So,
well, hang on. Before you get there, walk me through that week. Because going to Indy, I've been to Indy once. I went with Pitt. And just, to just be a helper or whatever. Tell me, that race is that's an endurance event on
it's
the
a
body.
Marathon. Yeah.
So what is it like? Because number one, you have to drive from here to Indy, which is 12 hours.
Yeah, about 14
hours. Yeah. So how does that, you get there, you unload, and then you're making your first runs on Tuesday or Wednesday?
So Wednesday.
Yeah. You park Tuesday, run on Wednesday. And of course you're up at 8 a.m. or earlier than that for stock, but go ahead.
Yeah. So multiple things. One, there is a headlight rule in Stock Eliminator. So you have to have one working headlight in Stock Eliminator. I tell everyone that the reason that rule's in there is for warm-ups at Indy, because you start at 6 a.m. So that's why everyone needs a working headlight. But yeah, Indy it's a different animal. It really is. It's 5 races into one or something. I don't know. It's very hard to explain until you've been there. I think that year we showed up Monday or Tuesday. I can't remember. All I remember is we did not park until like 1 o'clock on Wednesday. It was the weirdest parking situation. And then I parked at 1 o'clock. And we were getting called to the lanes at 2. Mind you, we were supposed to start at 8 a.m. that Wednesday.
Right.
But they couldn't even start because no one was parked. It was the weirdest situation you ever seen in your life.
So now you're rushing. You just drove all this way, and now you're rushing.
Yeah. And
after waiting in line.
Right. So I guess it goes back, 3 weeks before I left for Indy, I get the Marlowe 69 Camaro 255, or 350, 255 horse.
Combo, yeah.
H stock automatic car, I go to Ennis to make sure everything's good, you know, and I'm kind of running some numbers. I'm like, we should be fine to qualify at Indy.
Well, and explain how you have to qualify at Indy and how hard that is too, because that is everybody breaks their guns out for Indy.
Yeah, I mean it's a 128 car field, and you got about 170 or so back then trying to get in. So I mean, you better go a second under, or you're not going to get in. I mean, generally, I think the highest bump's been 88 under. There might have been one that's like 90 or 91. I can't remember. But you know, it's right at 90 under your index. You know, you want to make sure that you can go up there fast enough, because it's not a good feeling to go up there and not qualify, because I've done that before too. And so, you know, a few weeks before that, I go test at Ennis, and I'm like, we should be okay, you know. So, you know, getting back to kind of the prep deal before we go, I put lightweight oil in it in Texas. I never left. I didn't even leave here without lightweight oil in it. And so we did that. I go to Indy, and I think I go 95 under, something, 92 under, something like that first run. So I should be fine. And then later in the evening run, I think I go right at 1 second under.
Okay.
Maybe 101. I can't remember. And so I know I'm going to be fine. So, you know, that's Wednesday. Stock class is Thursday. Mind you, Indy runs Wednesday to Monday on just the racing surface.
Oh, yeah.
But it started parking Monday, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just it's another deal. But, you know, class is Thursday. There's the guy in my class, Chris Butcher. He's got a 305 car. I can't run with him. I think I was third round of class, maybe fourth round. I can't remember. It was definitely with 3 cars left.
Okay.
And so I kind of put mine completely back into bracket mode, right? But it's not really bracket mode because I got lightweight oil in it, right? Because just in case you get another heads up.
Exactly.
And so I, you know, he beats me in class and whatever. So then stock doesn't run on Friday at Indy. That's teardown day for 8 to 12 cars.
Right.
I think
for
there's
most
a morning
of the class
session.
winners.
Yeah, morning session and an afternoon session, essentially. It might be 12 cars. I want to say it's 6 and 6. So that's teardown day. So you start elimination Saturday. This is just stock eliminator. This didn't even get into the Super Comp when I was running it too. So I think I lost maybe Friday morning, second round. So I was already out of the Super Comp car before I even ran first round of the stock eliminator car. Yeah. And you just kind of progressed through the rounds. And I think we ran 4 rounds Monday evening. We had rain, of course, at Indy. We ran 4 rounds Monday evening after the pros. I guess it was 4 rounds. I think it was. I can't remember. It's 7 rounds total. 3 or 4 were Monday evening.
And you didn't have to run any heads up, anybody on the ladder before that?
I ran the semis. So I got to the semis, had an H car.
And you had an H car in semis.
Eddie Brooks, same combo, 69 Camaro. I want to say I was 60 on the tree. He was 20. I think I outrun him 700s, 800s, something like that. So, so then I get to the final, and I thought I was down about 8 to 10. And so, I mean, we did everything. You know, I pulled more oil out than I did in the semis.
And you're draining oil, just trying to get the windage off the crankshaft, just trying to get some free horsepower. 2 horsepower would make a difference here.
Chip up, add 3 more pounds in the back tires, right? Like, just do whatever. And so we do that in the final. I had it 40-something degrees going into the water. And so, you know, I was 000 in the final, luckily. My opponent, Matt Antrobius, I think something happened. He went on his 2-step early, and then it kind of lurched or something, and he was 100 on the tree, and then we ended up running within 100th. But mind you, my best run up until then was 11:07 on Thursday morning of class.
Right, and what's your index in H?
12:15.
Okay, so 11:07 to 12:15. So that's
107 under. At Indy, that's getting it.
Right, that's absolutely hauling the mail for that combo.
Yeah, and you know, in the final I go 11:05, so it's my fastest run of the weekend. And then he went 11:04. He had went 10:97 earlier in the weekend, so he kind of made not a good run. But
when it lurched forward, it might have just got a touch deep.
Yeah, and maybe not be on the 2-step again, right? You kind of sit on an idle.
Now you're a little worried.
Yeah, a lot of different things, right? Kind of coming into there. Plus, I had already been off a heads up right the round before.
So you didn't have to change much.
Correct. Yeah, he had the bracket run the round before, so he's calling to try and get it changed. But yeah, it was a crazy time. And then of course, like my immediate anxiety is like, God, I hope I'm good on weight. Right?
Hope I can pass the scale.
Yeah, I hope I'm good on weight. I hope for some reason I didn't just miraculously lose 20 pounds.
Right.
But, we passed that. And, the coolest thing is racing is such a solitary sport, right? Like, it's a huge team thing. But in the moment when the wind light comes on, it's such a solitary thing. I think it's the
You're by
weirdest.
yourself.
It's the weirdest juxtaposition because you never get to celebrate with the people that celebrate for you.
Nope.
It's the weirdest thing that happens in my brain. So you kind of celebrate by yourself. It's just so odd.
You're in the car, man.
Yeah.
You leave. How does that final play out? He ends up almost running you down.
Right, yeah.
And,
I
even though
catch
he's-
high, and then I'm just looking back the whole time to see where he's at.
He almost ends up running you down. The light comes on the wall. It's nighttime at Indy. It's a little foggy in the shutdown area, I think. Are you jumping up and down? Are you banging the roof of this thing?
Yeah,
are you
I was celebrating pretty good, right? Like, I try not to celebrate as much anymore, but it's Indy,
Yeah,
it's Stock Eliminator heads up final at Indy.
Right. It's like everybody that's ever ran stock. This is the epitome moment. This is
Correct.
the little kid in the backyard,
Yeah.
bases loaded, World Series down by 3 with 2 outs.
Yeah, because you're talking about a class that has been at the U.S. Nationals. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but late 50s.
Yep.
And so you're talking about 60 years worth of winners, right, at this class. Super Comp, Super Gas only been around since the 80s.
Yeah.
You're only well, that's almost 40 years at this point. But anyway, you're talking about one of the oldest classes in drag racing that has 60 winners in it. It's just kind of cool to kind of do some of that stuff.
Add your name to that list, man.
Yeah. So in the shutdown, you get excited, but you also realize this thing has no oil in it.
Yeah,
Like, I need to
off.
shut it off as soon as possible. You almost need to shut off before you let off the gas.
Yeah.
And so, it was a really cool time. And then, of course, you do weight, you do fuel, which seems like it takes forever. And then
Gotta
at
make
Indy,
sure-
at Indy, you kind of go up the return road there,
Yep.
because you do winners pictures in the lanes, and I'll never forget it. You kind of, and I'm cruising through there. I'm in neutral, but the engine's still running, of course, and you kind of roll up through there, and it's just the weirdest thing because all of your family and friends are waiting right there, but you haven't seen them yet. So of course then I have to rev up the engine, right?
Yeah.
So like you got to do that. And it's cool. Everybody just kind of there waiting on you to high five, hug you, and do different kinds of things. Like I'm not too proud to say I cried after I saw people in the staging lanes after winning Indy. Like it was that it's if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about Indy right there, then it's insane.
Well, that's my thought on it too, is that, if it doesn't emotionally move you that much, then you just don't need to do this.
Yeah.
I guess, like it just, maybe you've done cooler stuff. Maybe you've been to the moon. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
like,
it's really awesome. And then last year, I was able to do it again in Super Comp. So,
Right. that one was
cool.
a little more normal,
Yeah.
normal circumstances.
Yeah, a little more normal. What I learned is in 22 and then 19, I did not go to Bowling Green the week before.
Which almost everybody does, it feels like.
Yeah, and I went in 20 and 21, and it's hot and it sucks. Like, let's just call it what it is. It's gonna rain at some point. It's hot. It's
You hope
humid.
it doesn't flood.
It's 100 degrees. Like it sucks. And so I was like, I'm not going to Indy or Bowling Green before Indy again, and I'm sticking by it. And so apparently that may be the recipe, right? Because I mean, last year I got to Indy the Saturday before the event started, just to even get in line to park. Like that's just part of the process. And so, but I was able to go to St. Elmo's, chill out, the week of. Everybody that's been PRI, Indy, they know St. Elmo's. And so I had a really good experience, and that's kind of, what I'm going to do from now on. Probably just go straight to Indy, and skip the Bowling Green deal. But every year I say I'm not coming back, and then when it gets closer, I'm like, well, I guess I'm going back to Indy,
Yeah.
But it's a love-hate deal,
Well, and it's a maximum points weekend too, so there's a national advantage if you can win Indy. It'll carry an extra additional amount of points just by a small margin. But like you just said, last year Cooter and Burton were tied at the end.
Yeah.
So if they don't have that head-to-head, then you're gonna have to go to something else to make that point the tiebreaker. But however, if you win Indy, you get those extra 10 points.
Yeah, in Super Comp, Super Gas, you do. Stock, Super Stock, they still qualify 128, so you can't get it, right? So,
right, that's what I mean on the 90 side.
Yeah. So, I was fortunate. There's not very many 8-round races in Super Comp all year long anymore. And so that one was really cool. And it's just Indy, right? So
Exactly. I mean,
it's the Mecca.
How many cars are at Indy for that weekend?
It was 900 and something. Yeah.
Exactly. It's probably the largest drag. I mean, car count wise.
Yeah, probably.
It's there, you know?
Yeah, because you got to think, right? So some bracket races, maybe they've had more. I don't know.
They get close. It's 7, high 7s. I've heard a low 8.
But how many people are double entered?
Exactly. I've heard a low 8 or so thrown out. But exactly, how many people are double entered? So that's not race cars on the property. That's entries. Whereas what
Indy's
we're talking about, one car, one class, one time down the racetrack. Yeah. And it's a different animal. When I think of running 2 different cars, like either a 90 car or throttle stop car and then stock eliminator, those are very different disciplines. Mm-hmm. Those are very different vehicles you're trying to operate. And a lot of times you can also, because of the speed differential in stock, you may not have some strategies that are viable in stock like they are in 90 racing.
Sure.
Not all the time, but sometimes, because you can get those fast blower cars that show up.
Yeah.
Or you can get one of them VSA front-wheel drive cars that are out there. And it just takes, it's like taking tools out of your toolbox. It's just a little harder to do the task now.
Yeah.
What's it like when you doubled up at Belrose, right? Like I said, you got a Super Comp car over here. You're going to hit the trans brake button, tree comes on, all 3 bulbs, letting go of the button, tiny amount of delay in there. Car leaves, goes on the stop. Now you're sitting idle. You're trying to go through your head of how it felt on the tree. Does that, did I see anything in the bulbs against this guy? Or does this guy usually come on the stop close to the same time as me if you've raced him a few times? And how close are we or whatever? And then you're judging each other, and then it kicks off the stop. If you have a lot of power like a lot of guys nowadays do, it has a possibility of blowing the tires off every once in a while. And then you go down there and you're playing poker at 170 to 185. Mm-hmm. Stock Eliminator couldn't be more different.
Right. Right.
You're hitting the bottom bulb, your foot braking even though you're on a chip, and your hand shifting, and there's bigger speed differentials involved most of the time. Mm-hmm. There's, especially in cars you've piloted, because you've never really driven an FS car, have you yet?
No.
I didn't think so. So like nowadays with the faster cars, you're getting chased quite a bit, which obviously you're used to when you first got started in Super Comp. So that kind of plays into your wheelhouse a little bit. But then all of a sudden you get, like I said, that real slow front wheel drive car out there every once in a while where, hey, I got to dial the thing.
Right.
And I got to put a number on it. And if I can't do that, your chance of winning that round is not great.
Yeah, and both cars dial completely differently, right?
Right.
Like weather affects them
in different ways.
Yeah, It's just they're vastly different.
Most Super Comp cars aren't going to be as volatile to the humidity changes like the stockers are.
Yeah, small cubic inch type deal. It's just running. Of course, now the last couple of years I've run Super Comp, Super Gas, so those are much more similar.
Right.
But even those still dial a little differently, right? Wind, different things.
Yep.
But stock and kind of Super Comp, that's kind of what I ran forever. I used to tell people that they're so far different from each other that it almost helps, right? Because I cannot get confused. When I'm in one or the other, I cannot get confused, and it causes me to focus, right? So I think kind of being so far apart, it helped me focus and all right, this is what we have to do in this car, this is what we have to do in this one, and different things like that. And of course, the more you race this stuff, the more comfortable you get, the more confident you get, and different things like that. But it just kind of goes with a little bit of experience, right? So, and that's where I think I've changed a little bit in my racing. So, sure. I don't think I'm a better racer now than I was 10 years ago. What I think I realize now is what my strengths and weaknesses are that I didn't know 10 years ago. And that just comes with age and experience, right?
Yeah.
So I think I'm a smarter racer now. I think I use my brain and strategy a lot more than I did when I was 23, 4, 5 years old. I thought I could just do whatever, I can,
throw it out there, man.
Yeah, I can just do whatever I want, And as you get older, you realize what your strengths and weaknesses are, and you realize what you're good at, what you're not good at, and maybe how to use that, right? So this is going to sound horrible and pompous and different things, but somebody that I look at, and this is a sports metaphor, right?
Sure.
So Tom Brady, right?
Okay.
Not comparing myself to Tom Brady by any means, swear to God, not doing it. But so Tom Brady not the fastest guy by any means.
No.
Can't throw it the farthest, right?
Nope, definitely not.
Yeah. Is he the most accurate?
Probably not.
Probably
It's
not.
Probably close to the top, but probably
All the
not
subjective
that guy.
things, or even objective things, right? Not the top guy. Is he
No.
the best quarterback of all time? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because he used his brain and he knew exactly what he was good at.
Right.
And he knew what he wasn't good at, right?
Right.
So he limited what he wasn't good at to hide those and then just did what he was good at really well. Am I the best guy on the starting line? Not anymore. I probably wasn't back then, but I'm not as good. I'm not as sharp now as I used to be. Am I the best finish line driver like a Johnny Ezel, Nick Hastings? Absolutely not, But I think I do a lot of things really well, like the kind of the little things and preparing and kind of brain things. And I've tried to use that to my advantage over the years.
Well, one thing that I see when I look at stuff, I'm a process guy. So like that's what I obsess over, like in my racing stuff. I'm just all about, when we were at the practice tree race last time I saw you, right? Like I have a process for when I get up there to go to hit the button, and hit the tree. And it's a little bit different than being in a car, but that's what I obsess over. One thing that I know is huge on running a national event stuff, because, in local bracket racing or even big money bracket racing most of the time, you're going to get to complete the whole event in one day. So you get a lot of data within a short window of time that you can rely on for picking a number. And that's great, and we see how that affects everything in bracket racing. I mean, it is absolutely cutthroat out there. You move it over to the national event scale, and you could put the drivers of the same type of talent in, well, most of the time in the same damn car. Just put a throttle stop on it.
Dragsters are all the same.
Right. And you all of a sudden now end up with a much bigger window when comparatively. Now, Super Comp and Super Gas, Super Comp a little more, are some of the most cutthroat classes on the national scale. It is extremely tight reaction times most of the time, and almost everybody knows what they can go. You were one of the first guys that I saw that it always appeared that you knew what you could go, and you stayed disciplined for a lot of the time as far as understanding the perception of how the race is going to unfold.
Yeah.
So if you can go an 88 or an 86, or you've ran this guy 3 times before and you've done the 88 and the 86, and now you're like, yeah, screw it, let's put a 90 on it. Yeah. Those throttle stop adjustments, number one, you have to know what you're doing there. Like, you have to be very competent and very adamant with a decent logbook to go back to and rely upon and go, what do I got to do to make this thing run a 90 or an 88, whatever you want to do. What led you down that path, going that direction, that made you want to focus on that part of it?
Yeah, I guess I'm a math guy, right? So engineer, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a math guy, and that's Tommy Phillips said a long time ago, Super Comp, Super Gas, just very high-speed math, right? So I guess my process is, I look at weather, I'm like, all right, this is my 90 number, right? And then I'll find out who I have, whatever. Usually I don't find out to the lanes. And they'll be like, all right, well, this is what I'm going to do here. Usually by about 800 foot, I've already made up my mind exactly what I'm going to do. Either I've got enough room or I don't. And so that's usually my process. What bites me a little bit is I'll get it stuck in between decisions. Is I'll be like, well, I don't have enough room. Then all of a sudden it looks like I do. So then I get kind of stuck. And that's the indecision, right? So,
and that's the game, though, because maybe they're going to be killing some more a little bit later. Yeah. Maybe you've got an idea to scrub it earlier, or same thing as them, late, or you're trying to just ride next to them if you've got the mile an hour advantage,
Right. Yeah. Racing is actually very simple when we think about it, and all of us have made it super complicated.
Oh yeah, we've made it the most complicated thing ever.
Yeah, it's actually very simple at its core, right? So that's what's always funny too. I have some different strategies that I use at different times. Sure. I kind of have a default one, right? So that's just kind of my personal deal there. And I have a lot of people that I rely on too. I can remember, for instance, at Indy, Randy Lynn comes running up to me in the lanes because Bo had already run Super Gas.
Okay.
And she had watched the stock final. So she wrote down the 1,000 foots to relay to Bo from the stock final, which not the best to dial off of, but you can. She was like, stock just flew like 300s faster to the 1,000 foot than they should have, right? So, and then Bo he had a race where the guy, I think he broke the motor in the final or he hurt something.
Okay.
So she runs out. She's like, stock is way faster than they should be. I'm like, that's interesting. I was like, I can't really see that where it's coming from. Maybe it's a vapor pressure. I don't know. So like I'm running down through there and I was like, it just doesn't look right. I'm just going to stop. And so I stopped pretty hard, like 25 mile an hour.
Oh, yeah.
And
I was just watching it.
Yeah. And so I go 891. Jason Kinney goes 889, right? So it ends up being the correct decision, right? But, if I didn't have her run up to me and kind of, at least plant the seed, it may not have exactly changed my strategy.
But you were
at
a
the
little
time.
biased that way.
Correct. Yeah. And so, we help each other out like that. And, those are great friends of mine, Randy Lynn and Bo. And there was a stretch with her stalker between me and her. We didn't miss a dial on her car in like 8 months. Like it was spot on every run. Like we knew exactly what it was doing. And then of course, like that engine has to get pulled out and then you put the spare in and it's
totally new logbook.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, there's different strategies in the super categories. It's a heads up bracket class, right? So
exactly. You're going to be 890, 990, or 1090.
Yeah. And the other interesting part, right, is I can't see my opponent's timer, right? Like I
No.
don't know how they're setting up.
No, the best thing you can do is just look at it and be like, oh, this guy's got a spread port head on deal on it.
Yeah,
and
it
you're
goes
like,
this speed.
You're like, he's probably going to go like 183 or,
Yeah.
Whatever. He's in this area. And then also sometimes I've seen some guys at national events in D2, they have a legit little pocket notebook full of car numbers
Yeah.
and mile an hour.
Yeah.
Just like looking at.
I just kind of look over there. I'm like, is it SR20?
Yeah.
Is it 12 degree?
Right. What is it? Be like,
Yeah.
all right, cool. I'm going to be getting chased a
Yeah,
little bit.
because you'll figure it out at 8th mile anyway, right? Like
Exactly. You're going to see
So-
it no matter what.
So that's kind of, it's a game, right? Like you're really playing chess and playing some math there. So that's kind of what it appeals to me. I like the laid back feel. And I think Luke has said this before too, like that every round counts, right? So like that's another thing.
It does. There's no buybacks. You can't
Right.
lose first round and then just hop back in. No, man, you lose first round in both classes. You're going home.
Yeah, it's an adrenaline thing, right? So
Yeah.
it's
It's a lot of pressure.
It's that competitive outlet type deal that we talked about earlier. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what appeals to me about it.
That makes sense. We were talking earlier about like divisional money or payout and stuff. Obviously, the money hasn't gone down, but it also hasn't gone up.
Right,
I know
so-
on the contingency
Yeah.
side, it's moved around.
Yep.
But do you think that there is a possibility, I'm not saying a recommendation, but a possibility to be able to move that money or just inject a little bit more money into Super Comp, Super Gas, all the sportsman classes? I mean, obviously Comp Eliminator is in Division 4 is having a bonus for the championship and a bonus for each race win. But we don't have that scattered anywhere else. And I understand the comp guys spend way more money.
Sure.
And they probably deserve it. And if you have someone that's as big of a fan as who's putting up the money for it, then it makes sense.
Yeah.
But with what NHRA does, and I don't know NHRA's business model and financial status and all these other things, but it's just out of curiosity here, what we're seeing. Do you think that racers such as yourselves have earned a little bit better payout, or since the contingency model doesn't seem to be like it was 20 years ago?
Yeah, it's not what it was 12, 15 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So I won a national event in 2009, 10, somewhere around there. I think I got 12 grand. You're lucky to get about 7,500, 8 grand now. So, right. So essentially your money did go down, right? With
Yeah.
the contingency model there. The actual NHRA paycheck, I don't think it's changed in years. I couldn't tell you.
I think it's the same.
Yeah, and so one of my beefs last year, which I never got an answer on, Stock Eliminator pays less for some reason.
Yeah, I know.
No idea why. No one has told me why. And so Super Comp, Super Gas, and Super Stock all pay $1,800 for just the check, right, at a national event.
Right.
Stock is $1,500. Don't really understand it because we all pay the same entry and all have the same amount of cars, right? Like in Top Dragster, Top Sportsman, Super Street, those kind of make sense to be less payout. They have
Sure,
less cars.
Less cars. Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense. Stock, it doesn't make sense. I don't know if it's been oversight. I don't know if it's been what, but man, it's very frustrating from a personal opinion. And I've never actually been on the record to say this, but it's everything should go up, right? Like you're paying $210 in entry. And I realize that some of that goes to the tracks and whatever, but our payout comes from NHRA. Membership fees come from NHRA. We've all got calculators. We all can do math compared to what you paid out compared to what you took in.
Exactly.
And I get they have sponsor money. With Lucas Oil, I guess they don't do. In thinking out loud here, they don't sponsor individual events. They sponsor kind of year-end prizes, which that's fine. They've been a great supporter.
Yeah, glad to have it.
For 20 years or however long it's been now.
Feels like forever.
But I'm a little worried because you've got kind of this comp deal that's kind of taken off in Division 4. Division 3 has a smaller scale, and I think they're paying $10,000 to their winner, maybe 15.
Okay.
I can't remember. Division 5 has started a comp eliminator fund. I feel like I saw another class in another division somewhere is doing a fund.
And I really hope that this brings the comp eliminator status up, which is great for them.
Yeah, and Super Street is doing their own kind of quasi-national champion deal through, I am blanking, Steve Kasner is putting that on.
Right, which should be a national.
It's competitor funded, right?
Yeah.
So that's a slippery slope because...
We've already seen how organized bracket racers can be.
Yeah.
What if you have a unionization of sorts with these guys?
Yeah, and NHRA can be like, well, they're still coming to our races. Why should we increase the payout, right? So that's
a fair argument from the financial side.
Yeah, and I do think there's a time to increase that. What it goes to, I don't know. We have been fortunate in Division 4 where we kind of retooled instead of being 150, 160 to enter and win $1,000 in each class. And pay third round runner-ups and on. We went to $200 entry. You pay back to the quarters. It pays $2,000 to the winner.
Right.
$500 to the runner-up, I guess. No, $750. I'm sorry. And then we have sponsors for each class, right? So the actual check that you get at a divisional in Division 4 is $2,500, right? I just told you that a national event pays $1,800 to win.
Exactly.
And it's $330 to enter.
And there's how many ever people there, and there's...
Correct. Yeah.
However many extra days, I understand that for we're talking about it being country club racing initially up front. We all understand that for the most part. We all accept that. I'm not asking for this to be the World of Outlaws where someone can invest $1 million into an operation and have the chance through legitimate media promotion, legitimate sponsorships, all these other things to go out there and actually turn a profit and not a bad one, really. Yeah. There's a lot of guys that just drive World Outlaw cars that make well north of $100,000 a year. But when we look at that model and see how well that works, that is our top fuel. That is our funny car. I wouldn't as much say pro stock and pro stock bike, maybe pro mod. That could be a debate, I guess. But we have the same, damn near the same investment in the equipment. Maybe a little bit smaller shop. You don't have, paid help or anything. Yeah. But that investment, to be totally honest with you, is not that far off from if you look at the majority of the rigs that are at NHRA races on the sportsman side to what someone is putting into a World of Outlaws deal. Operations costs, obviously different. Yeah. But there seems to be that this support has not waived. It maybe a little bit during the 2008 recession, but that happened everywhere in every business. And now, even with there's a mindset not forever ago, but 15 years ago that most bracket racers, you couldn't hold a big money bracket race and a divisional in the same division because people would think that they would bleed from one to the other. Well, nowadays those are two. They operate.
They're separate. Yeah.
Right. They operate as two totally different demographics, and now. One has obviously shown how much money they'll throw out there. This one over here. Participant funded. Yeah. I mean, sure. Don't get it wrong. There's some sponsorship stuff in there. And it may pay
and it works.
Right. And it may pay for Motor Mania. And it helps with the round loss prizes. That helps retain your customer, the racer. But over here on the NHRA side, it's like, same.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's a hard conversation. To have with NHRA. Right. Like, I don't have the answers for how you increase payout.
No, and neither do I. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
I'm just worried that
speak.
it may push it away.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about, hobby, different things, but at the end of the day, if people don't get any return on their investment, then they may not continue to invest. And so, especially at a time when the younger generation isn't as keen into drag racing, it doesn't seem like. You could argue it one way or another. I don't know.
They're definitely not as big in the NHRA.
Yeah, that's fair. And so I don't know what we do to generate that. I don't know what we do to the contingency program to kind of fix that.
I don't know.
NHRA gets a bad rap, and a lot of that is deserved. I've been a defender of NHRA for a long time. They've done things in the last 3 years that just kill me, but I still go to the races, right? So I can't complain too much.
Well, right, and nobody's, I'm not sitting here trying to put their head on a stick.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because number one, nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to make the right decision every single time. Number two, there's a middle management at NHRA, and any middle management philosophy is just basically like make my boss happy to keep my job.
Yep.
That doesn't always lead to the best product being developed. The other part of that as well is the fact that there is a legacy, and the people that have competed in NHRA, especially on the class racer side, by what I mean by that is like, comp, super stock, and stock, your legacy classes they've been doing it since they were 20 and now they're 60. So you have a lot of people that have participated in this style of competition for 40 years. They're the guys that made the HSA index get beaten up so bad.
Right.
But when they're gone, who is there to fill their shoes?
Yeah, or what classes do you use in place of those, right? So I know those have been around for a long time, and I guess comp's been around since, 70s? Maybe
whenever
not as
they
long as
split
stock,
up,
super
whenever
stock,
they split up modified.
Yeah, so that was in 81, 82, something like that. So yeah, I don't have all the answers. Of course, people have been having this conversation for, before you and I were born.
Right.
But it's interesting. I get NHRA as a charitable business. I don't know if they still fall under that charity designation.
Sure.
I feel like they're an actual business now, but I could be wrong.
I remember when we were running the juniors, they were a charity, yes.
Yeah, and so it's an interesting business model, right? Because their members are their tracks, right? But their tracks need to be profitable. So it's such a weird dynamic that I don't think you see in any other traditional business. And so then you bring in live TV coverage, which is great for the sport, blah, blah, blah. And there's sportsman effects to that, right? So we get bumped in different things. I understand that.
You obviously don't get the same coverage.
Yeah, definitely don't get the same coverage, right? So I went on a rampage I sent God knows how much. The Indy coverage from First Sportsman was awful.
Yeah.
I sent plenty of emails about it, and I don't think it got heard, which is fine. That's just kind of more of my gripes. But
you got a microphone now.
Yeah, it's
so
just,
what did you see?
Of course, I understand the role of the non-alcohol classes of sportsmen, right? So on the TV coverage, alcohol is going to dominate, especially with Tony Stewart. Now within the class, and rightfully so. I think
of course
that's
it's a big deal. It's a huge deal.
It's huge for the sport. If you get 10% of Tony Stewart fans to watch drag racing,
if you get
huge win.
Yeah, 1% of Tony Stewart fans watch Top Alcohol. God,
yeah. And I'm watching Top Alcohol now. If that tells you anything.
Absolutely.
And so the Indy coverage, and I understand Indy's a long event. But it is the most prestigious event. And from a sportsman perspective, they showed all the finals super 2 minutes. Camera angles awful because the staff had to leave because they were on overtime, whatever.
Yep.
So they had to go to the manual deals. Brian Loans rushed through it, which on his own accord, me and him talked about it. He was in full agreement with me. He thought it was a horrible product that they put out, which I agreed with. And so, different things like that, getting bumped, to After Pro. So you got to do, you don't get to do the Parade of Champions deal. You just go and you get your Wally at the end and take your pictures, blah, blah, blah. And you kind of feel like you're being pushed out. which a lot of things are out of their control, with live TV coverage, different things. But, I think that there could be some things improved. Like I said, I don't have all the answers, and I try not to post all these on social media, right? Because that's just a cesspool most of the time.
Yeah.
And different forums are also that too. So forums are great. They can be, and social media can be great.
They can be helpful, sure.
Or they can be awful for humanity.
Right.
And so, I try and do all of mine kind of behind the scenes when I try and help. Over the last couple of years, I feel like kind of gone ignored, and I feel like I have a pretty prominent position within the sportsman racing community. So I feel like, I have a responsibility, to kind of bring these things to light with the NHRA and organization and the racers. And so different rule packages kind of that they've done, a lot of things just don't make sense. So I tell everybody, I'm not anti-NHRA. I'm just, I'm a little bit frustrated with trying to help. And an organization that doesn't want help at times, or doesn't listen to the help at least. Maybe they listen to it, they just don't choose to ignore it. I don't know. So yeah, that's just, I still love the NHRA racing. I've made a lot of relationships out there. The challenges that we talked about, I would still go to the events, do I think they can be improved? Absolutely. But, yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's as I grow older, again, I tell everybody I'm not old, but, I'm not old, but I'm getting older, and I've realized some things, just working in corporate America too, that you realize what NHRA, they kind of have their hands tied at times, right? So
sure.
But as I'm rambling on here, yeah, it's a different organization,
It is,
and they get a bad rap, and sometimes it's deserved, sometimes it's undeserved.
Yep.
And they're never going to make everyone happy, right? Because
no,
you're never going to. Essentially, that is a customer service organization. When you really think about it, and customers never going to be happy. So
right.
We know that as sportsman racers. So we could be a little better. They could be a little better. I think we need to work together, which I don't think happens a lot of times. The SRAC is a great idea. So the Sportsman Racer Advisory Council is a great idea. I think if used the correct way, it could be a good thing. They just don't use it the correct way. I do think it's sort of a scapegoat at times. So if they have a rule or something that they want to introduce, well, we asked the SRAC. So they kind of play the blame game, in my personal opinion. But yeah, that's just me kind of rambling on against some NHRA things.
Well, you're okay, man. If you're okay, real quick, we're just going to take a real short break here. I'm actually going to go run to the restroom, if you don't mind. Give me just 1 second. All right, man. Sorry about that.
Yep.
Getting all this water here. I drink a little.
Getting old.
Yeah, man, getting old. You know how it is, man. You get windshield time over. I remember the best way to try to stay awake when I was going over the road was literally just try to drink as much water as possible to make yourself have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then don't. I don't think that's great health advice.
No, probably not.
But it kept me awake through a lot of late night drives and motorhomes.
Yeah.
One of the things that I want to ask you, we've obviously dove into extreme detail on the NHRA side, your experiences as an NHRA racer. What's next for Austin Williams, man? Are you planning to keep running NHRA stuff? Do you want to progress maybe further down that line if options become available? Or are you looking at maybe other drag racing lanes? Yeah,
I do have some different things planning.
That sounds fun.
In 2024, maybe a different class.
Okay,
that's in the kind of the planning stages there. It should be pretty fun. I think when I look back, I don't want to miss any opportunities that I could potentially have. Right?
Okay,
so this one should be pretty cool. Me and someone else kind of want to keep it tight-lipped.
Sure, that's fine.
And so
I can take guesses though, and it's fun.
It would be fun. Me and said person we want to look back and be like, did we do everything that we wanted to do in racing before it goes away, right? So because we never know how long this is going to be around.
Right, this thing could always end tomorrow.
Yeah, and so that's in the works. At this current moment, I plan on continuing to race Super Gas. That's been a really fun class in really great equipment with Buddy Wood. And the Ortowskis, right, with Ortec Energy Technologies. And so that's been really fun. Future state. I think every sportsman racer would agree that they want to run pro stock at some point.
Oh yeah,
that would be a pipe dream, right? Like making that a reality is very tough, as we discussed earlier. So financially and logistically, just all of the lees.
Yeah, it's about $750,000 to $1 million to lease a ride for a year somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, because that's pretty much what you got to do now, right? So which is cheaper than doing your own.
Much cheaper than trying to develop your own engine package and buy the rig and the shop and the help and the everything else. Yeah,
and so that would be a pipe dream. I think it's like 800 somewhere around there.
Okay,
which is a lot of money, obviously.
Right, $800,000 a year just gone.
Yeah, lots of people's salaries there.
Yep.
And so, that would be the long term, and then I'll continue bracket racing as well. So
okay,
which that's been fun over the last few years. Racing with one of my friends growing up. I say friends, he's 20 years older than me. 19, I guess. But Jeremy Heffler, right? So I've been running the Bronco a bunch, Bronco 2. And so that's been fun, bracket racing. I've been out to the Vegas Million a couple times.
Yep.
The guaranteed Great American Bracket Race Million before. Plan on going to a few more of those kind of big money bracket races. Where I can lose 6 times in one weekend. Rather than just twice on the NHRA side, right? So immediate future kind of just continuing on as some of these, like I think I said earlier that I want to go to the races I want to go to now, and I'm in a financial spot where I can do that, and in a spot in my life where I can do that as well. So and race with the people that I want to race with. So going to kind of continue on with that.
Okay, yeah, man. I mean that obviously makes a large amount of sense. There's a ton of crossover obviously between 90 racing and bracket racing. Yeah. What do you find the challenges? How different are they for someone that's predominantly had a ton of success in the NHRA side? When you go to the bracket racing side, what are the things that make it hard? Maybe I wouldn't say harder, but different.
Yeah. So I mean, think about on the NHRA side. If you run on a national event 4 times down the track a day, that's like the max.
Yeah.
So 4 times down the track, and you're talking from a burnout and everything. That's 4 minutes out of a 24-hour period that you're actually on the racetrack. So you need to have extreme focus in those 4 minutes. Not saying you don't in the bracket racing, but you've got shorter time in between, less time to think. Like it just takes kind of a different mental space.
Sure.
And so the bracket racing deal, it's you kind of get in routine. You get in.
You get in that rhythm.
Yeah, it's just you think a little less.
Their wavelengths and the waves just get shorter and shorter and shorter as you go on.
Yeah, and then you're tired at the end from climbing in and out of a car 18 times a day.
And it's like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. This last weekend extreme. So they're just different. Both have advantages, disadvantages. I like both, right? So I'll continue to do both as much as I can, but also take off some off weekends when I need to. Right?
I get that, yeah. So. And my last question for you. Oh, hang on. Yeah, my last question for you. Okay, so I do a pass along question from the folks that were on previously to who's on now. Aaron Smith came up with this one, and now keep in mind he is
drag
and drive folks. Yeah. They're building a car to go do some 8th mile small tire stuff, and it should be pretty salty, I think, for that competition. His question to you was whether it's bracket racing or super comp, since that's the fast car you drive, how fast is too fast?
For me, I would say mile per hour, right? So
mile an hour.
Obviously, anything 8th mile, you'd really have to be getting it to be too fast, probably. I guess speed and acceleration are 2 different things, right?
Exactly.
So, 8th mile, I probably wouldn't want to go anywhere in the 3s. Like, that's just too fast, which I realize some of the top dragsters go that fast.
Oh, yeah.
Pro stock goes about 420 at 161 or 2, right? With a lot of action in between there. So for me, probably 220 in the quarter probably would be the fastest that I'd ever really want to go.
Okay.
No incentive to run Pro Mod, funny car. God knows, no on funny car. Top fuel would be a no. Not really my thing. So yeah, 220 probably would be the fastest mile per hour I'd go in quarter, and I'd say probably 170 in the 8th, something like that.
Yeah, I think
those are similar accelerations, right?
Yeah, Yeah, 170, 180 is absolutely booking it. I mean, this past year I think it was past year. Was it past? Yeah, it's past year. I got to drive that Mullis house car at the Million at
with the blower on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and I was shocked. That thing was like 10. What is it? 104, 10. No, 117 to the 60. Hell, hang on. Let's remember. I'm not great with numbers and remembering things when we were talking about the Spark and the 8th mile times.
Yeah.
Practice race. But I went 440s at like
158 probably.
And it was smooth. It was butter. It left at like $3,000, and I'm like, oh, I get why everybody does this. This is easy. This is easier than going 460s or 450s. Naturally aspirated.
Yeah, I guess the fastest I've been, probably in Will Carroll's dragster in Vegas. So I ran it.
Which one?
The carbon 9-degree car.
Okay, not Ricky's. Oh, no, you drove the super stock dragster. Yeah.
Yeah. It. I think I dialed 436 at Vegas.
God, that's getting it. That thing is nasty.
Very smooth.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, I've been 40s in my dragster here, so it's kind of similar. Yeah, a dragster would be different. I'd probably go a little faster in a dragster than I would a door car. So, yeah, I don't really have any interest in going in the 3s, right?
No.
I'm not into that.
Too much to happen. And I mean, something with that small of a front tire on it and that slow of steering, you're really not necessarily in control.
No, God, no.
Yeah, you're just giving suggestions to the front tires.
Yeah, Pro Stock would be probably the fastest, really, that I would go in a door car because you get to shift gears, right? So then you're only steering with one arm, right? Yeah. One hand. With 0 downforce.
None whatsoever. It's an absolute bullet.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Everybody that talks, they say you're really just kind of hanging on, right? So it'd be interesting. No factory stock, no for me.
What about factory extreme with the 10.5
would be interesting. I think he's shooting for 670, 680s is what I'm being told from NHRA.
That's what I'm being told as well with some of the things we've done. That's probably going to be the neighborhood.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be shocked, to be honest with you, if it progresses quicker than that.
I think it will. I think they're trying to aim for 70s, 80s, so they'll end up in the 50s. Yeah.
That's what I told Dave, one of the guys that works here. He used to work for an MCA setting rules up and stuff like that. And he was like, how fast do you think they're going to go? And I'm like, man, they're going to have to go 80s. Like, that car has no other choice.
Yeah, and what, 2,600 pounds?
2650.
Yeah, with big tire, clutch, right? So, I mean, it's in between. I think factory stock got too fast. Yeah, for 3,600 pounds
on a 9-inch tire with factory suspension.
Yeah, and I don't know how much you watched the Gainesville coverage. There was 2 cars.
One of them has a very interesting chassis dynamic.
Yeah, another one did too. Which honestly, a little surprised no one tried it sooner. To be honest,
dude. All right, yeah. So if anybody that doesn't know it, just go to YouTube.
Joe Welch.
Yep, Joe Welch, Gainesville, NHRA. It'll probably be the first thing that pops up.
Yeah.
And what is happening is almost, if you look at the other 14 cars in the field, when they leave, they all squat down and squat the ass end of the car, and it lifts the front end. And you get all these actually really exciting passes and big wheel stands a lot of the time, blah, blah, blah. And what Welch and someone else did. Who's the other guy that did it? Do you know?
I think it was a Mustang, but I can't remember who it was. Yep.
When you see them operate, they have separation in the rear end, which looks very
radial
similar.
Style. Yeah.
Right, looks very similar to LDR, Pro 275, Radial versus the World. Taking a little bit of that mindset, a little bit of a science project, applying it over here, see if it works. Apparently it works pretty damn decent.
Yeah, it also helps when I think you got a ton of power, right? He went 185 in the final.
Yeah.
129 60 foot for him, and when he had 122 in the other lane with Stanfield. So
right.
It's interesting. I thought I noticed it as soon as I saw Q1. I was like, well, that looks like 10.5 radial versus the world, whatever you want to call it. Kind of that. So I'm a little surprised no one tried it sooner. Curious what the drivability is at 3,600 pounds like that.
On the big end, it looked a little sketchy in the final, man.
Yeah, it doesn't look great.
But you would think it'd have a lot of load on those front tires, so it would respond a little better to the wheel. But you just don't know until you're in the car.
Yeah, you're also talking about cars that are super wide, right? Like
very aerodynamically dirty on the Dodge side.
Very bad, yeah. So just curious what if somebody adopts that on the Copo side, right? So we'll see.
They can. They have a torque arm, so they have that physical. They have the physical ability to do so if they want to, I believe. Yeah. From what I've seen, but yeah, man. I think other than that, man, I'm super happy that you stopped by. Thank you for taking time out of your busy Tuesday to do this. Try to do my best to get all this stuff edited for you, and be able to put it up, man. I honestly, like we were talking about earlier, man. If this is it tomorrow, it's over.
It could be
one hell of a career, buddy.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. It's great to know you, be able to race with you around here.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to hopefully have you on again somewhere down the line. We could be looking back to see what maybe the next 10 years looks like.
Yeah,
man.
maybe so. Yeah, it's been great, right? So I'd like to continue on, but if not, it's been fulfilling for sure.
Well, man, I would say it's been fun to watch. That's for sure. So good luck this year, man. And I know I'm going to see you around racing wise, but not good luck to you at that time.
Yeah, sounds right. So.
All right, bud. Well, thank you.
All right.